Hi, my name is Andrew Wormsley. Welcome to another episode of Embrace the Opposite, where we talk about relationship advice and motivation. Think about this, if you will. Two people who really claim to love each other, really committed to one another, but they continue to go back and fall into the same traps of arguments, strife, and disconnect. They put each other down during these arguments. They disrespect each other during these arguments. They give each other the silent treatment. They leave. All sorts of things that really prove that this relationship is not all it's cracked up to be. Well, as I look at the relationships around me and the couples that I talk to, this is actually a pretty common thing. So if it's common for you, then you're going to want to stay tuned to this episode of Embrace the Opposite, because we're going to be talking about the 3 ways that you can de-escalate an argument right in the midst of battle. You know, when I look towards my own relationship and when I'm talking to couples, there's really a handful of things that most of the arguments fall into. Sex, money, romance, how romantic one treats the other, not listening to one another, communication is terrible, pet peeves that one may have with the other. But when it comes down to it, there's really one thing that I find couples have issue with when they're in the midst of an argument. And that one thing is fear. Fear of not being loved, fear of not being appreciated, fear of not being heard. These things really drive everything else in the argument, even if we're talking about different things. And so it's about getting a handle on fear within ourselves so that we can move forward and really de-escalate that argument. One word I always refer to when I'm talking to couples is courage. And I say courage obviously from the standpoint of dealing with what is inside. If I don't have the courage to look my fear dead in its face and say, you know what, you're not going to overtake me. I'm not going to allow you to get me to treat this person in a way that is disrespectful, in a way that is unkind, in a way that I'm not exhibiting love. Fear causes us to forget. It causes us to forget how special this person is to us. And we move forward in the argument not thinking about how to pedal back and get back to a good stable space. We move forward trying to prove our point, trying to preserve our ego. So I want you to picture this. You and your partner are in the midst of it. You know an argument is going to happen. You're saying one thing, your partner's saying another, and things are getting thrown in there that really can hurt the other person. And then all of a sudden, that one thing is said and the other person blows up, and now the argument has gone to another level. Look, we've all been there. Everybody has had that type of argument where it just goes to another level. And sometimes when we get there, we don't really know what to do, so we just keep pushing and pushing and pushing until we feel as though the other person gives or that we have won. But most times when we get there and when we're walking away from our partner, we sometimes regret what we've done. We regret what we have said. And it is in those moments when we wish we could go back in the conversation, go back in the argument, and insert something into the argument that could help. Bring it to a place of calmness instead of escalating it to another level. Well, that's what I want to talk about today. So let's get right into it. The first thing you can do when you're in the midst of an argument and you see things going in a really bad direction is relate. Relate. So you guys have differing views and differing opinions, or you're trying to protect something that you thought was true or you did or didn't do and that your other partner is upset about. Well, instead of just keeping to go down that same line, come up with other ways and other rebuttals to what they say, pause in the middle of it and just think about something that your partner has done or said that is actually true, that you can relate to, and that you can say, you know what, sweetheart, you did do that in the right way, and I kind of did mess up there. Find something relatable to what they're saying right in the midst of the disagreement. If you can have the wherewithal to do that, if you can have the courage to do that, it'll completely catch your partner off guard and it'll bring things down just a hair. So you want to find something that's relatable. So if you come home from work and the kitchen is a mess and dinner's not cooked, and you say to your husband or you say to your wife or you say to your partner, what gives? I was expecting everything to be straight, and the argument ensues. Well, maybe somewhere in the midst of there, they did something right in the past. You can always go back to that and say, you know what? You did clean up for me after I cooked dinner last week, and I really appreciated that. If you can just have the wherewithal to think that and say that, it'll change the whole context of the argument. So the second thing you can do, number 2, is you can listen. So many times we're in the midst of an argument, we're so focused on our own agenda and our own ego that even when the other person is talking, we're not really listening. We're formulating the next point that we want to bring up after our partner has stopped talking. Instead of doing that, maybe try listening once in a while. Like actually listening to what they're saying. Sometimes this can be very hard because a lot of the things that are coming out of your partner's mouth can be disrespectful, they can be hurtful, and they can really be making jabs at you. But somewhere in the midst of that, they're going to be saying how they actually feel. And too many times we miss these points because we're trying to think about what we're going to say next to take their point down. So we need to listen. We need to listen to what they're saying, and we need to make sure that we hear it and understand it. So it might go something like, you guys are bickering back and forth about the kitchen being a mess, dinner not being made, but somewhere in there, your partner says something that they're actually feeling. And so you want to make sure you hear that, you want to repeat it back. So, honey, what I hear you saying is that you didn't think it was as important to clean the kitchen because the kids were going crazy, dinner, we were having leftovers from the night before, and it really wasn't necessary for you to clean the kitchen. Am I understanding that correctly? Now notice how I threw in there, am I understanding that correctly? That's something that I really live by in my own relationship because I want to make sure that my wife understands and knows that I've heard her, and I want to make sure that what I have heard is exactly what she's trying to convey to me. This is another great question to ask because you don't ask it offensively, you ask it with respect and with patience, and they have the opportunity to respond and say, yes, that is what I'm feeling. So it allows us to bring that to the forefront of the disagreement, of the argument, and then we can journey on from there. And number 3, the third thing you can do to de-escalate the conversation is take ownership and apologize. So many times, guys, like I said before, we are so focused on our agenda in the midst of an argument. Look, we've been hurt, we've been maybe disrespected verbally. Even with that though, it's important that we have the courage to take ownership for what we have done and what we are responsible for. We're so stuck on trying to prove our partner wrong that we forget about these things of taking ownership. What did I do wrong? This is really a huge thing that I see in a lot of couples. We have tunnel vision, and that tunnel vision is staring at a mirror, and that mirror is reflecting back to our own reflection. So we're thinking only about ourselves. We can't just have a one-sided point of view because remember, we're in a relationship that wants to work. We want to be swell. We want to embrace the opposite. That may look something like with the kitchen scenario where in the midst of you guys bickering, you pause and you say, you know what? I did jump down your throat a little bit about the way that the kitchen looked, and I do apologize for that. I had a stressful day at work myself, and I think I was just a little on edge, so I do apologize for kind of jumping down your throat. So it doesn't take long, it just takes a little awareness. With that, your partner is going to say, wow, right in the midst of this argument, right as he was trying to prove point 4 or 5, he paused and he apologized and he took ownership for how he acted towards me during that beginning part of the conversation. That's huge. That will completely, again, bring your partner down a level, and you guys can then from there talk about it. And this is something to add to all of that. In the midst of a conversation, if things have kind of come down a little bit, don't be afraid to add a little comedy in the situation. You guys know your relationship better than anybody. You know what your inside jokes are. Maybe you can put something in there that puts your partner at ease, and it will let them know that you're not on the same level of aggravation and anger that you were before. This can be a great thing. Now, when I say that, I don't mean to be sarcastic. You can't be sarcastic in these moments, which a lot of couples do. And they tend to say after the fact, well, I was just kind of joking. We know each other well enough to know whether someone's being sarcastic or whether someone is genuinely trying to enter some comedy into the conversation to make us laugh and to make light of the situation. And so you have to make sure that you don't venture into being sarcastic and facetious, because your partner will be able to pick up on that. But adding a little comedy into the argument at the right time can do wonders for the whole argument. So guys, those are the three things. Number one, relate. Find a way to connect with your partner, understand their perspective, and bring something up in the disagreement that they actually have to deal with. Number two, listen and repeat back. So actively listening to your partner during the argument, and then once you understand what they're saying, repeat that back to them so they can confirm it. And number three, take ownership and offer a sincere apology. This will do wonders for your argument right in the midst of it. Now guys, listen. The fact of the matter is that if you don't have the courage to do this, if you don't have the courage to set your ego down, set your agenda down, and put first your partner, and have the courage to do that, then none of these things are going to work for you. That first and foremost will allow you to set down your ego, think about these three things, insert them into the argument, and see them do wonders for your relationship. But even with all that, guys, as we know, relationships are hard. So if you want to talk further on these points, or if you have other questions, don't hesitate to direct message me at Facebook or Instagram on the links below. So guys, that's what I wanted to share today. I hope it was helpful. If this video has helped you, don't forget to like. And if you feel like this video can help somebody else, please go ahead and share it. I would really appreciate it. So again, I'm Andrew Wormsley. I'm wishing you guys the best of relationships. Remember, strive to be swell, embrace the opposite, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Peace.